So, I think I would start off with um, drugs and alcohol. Uh, Sometimes, people get swept away with the lifestyle. They're amplifying things. They use it as, um, a tool to, or, eh, like a party supply, just something, a favorite, or a lowercase spirit, so to speak, and a lot of people, they know all the, oh, it's a spirit and this and that. I'm not tearing into all that. I don't have to. Let me sidetrack real quick. I don't have to and all that. I don't have to put the dramatics on it. Here's something. A lot of the people that I talk to, I tell them, if I'm talking to you, it's not good. Ain't nothing special about me. But usually people that I talk to, I you know, and it's not them, so to say. It's like God's showing me, better stay on the path because I talk to him and then I walk off and then I'll come around in orbit again and it could be the next day. Well, I was just talking to them about God yesterday and they're dead. You know, people on the fast track and all that. And it's very unfortunate. But I don't have to. There's some people they have to go and preach, so to speak, by means of they say, oh, psychology, but they use courtroom that's taught in the courtroom for different types, whether like litigation. There's debate tactics used in preaching. And I made a joke about it once, and I use this as an illustration. And sure, and I can prove it, but it's again, that's me, that's the flesh. I get in the way when I do that. But the thing, and that's the thing, is how do you get out of the way? Is it's good to have a good illustration and everything. God blesses you with something, but the courtroom stuff. And I made a comment, and I said, and I pretty much set it up. I said, now watch. I said, this guy is, in about 3 months, he's going to preach on a topic called leading the witness. And because as I kind of gave it to him, I didn't give it to him. He was just, oh, no, 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 no. And I felt like he stole probably a good 10, and then I corrected him on a couple things, and it's just not good. But anyways, it was kind of funny, or I don't want to say ironic, but it was definitely demonstrational when I said that, and I basically kind of complained about the whole thing, and I made a couple jokes, about leading the witness and everything, and I planted the seed, and I just was kind of tired of them, and of taking, something that I felt like God gave me, and I said, watch, and sure enough, almost the whole message, but it's okay. That message was said, and some people say, well, how do you know God didn't? If you don't use it, God will give it to someone else. Yeah, I see that a lot. You know, uh, I don't care though. I mean, I do, but I don't. Because how would that be if I was like mad at someone for creeping in the spotlight and then try to get into the, and then that would make me as disgusting and despicable as a person. And we all know that I am. You know what I mean? But to get up there and slick my hair to the side, no, 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 and get all dramatic. In that courtroom preaching, where uh, they feel like they gotta gig you or something, or all of a sudden just like yeah, and all right and all that stuff, and well, man, I'm preaching, and no, I don't think you know that's a lot of sometimes that's good, but let's just say it's not me. You know, if if there's like a special mission, or something like that, I don't fancy myself. I'm nothing. I'm a dropout, blah blah blah. And but I like to fantasize, like a lot of people do, and I like to think and create stories in my head and stuff like that. Use the imagination God gave me, and for stories and fun and just entertainment. I don't watch TV. Um. So anyhow, I like to invent stuff. Use it, creativity. But anyways, you see a demonstration of like a soldier or something. They don't just unless it's some late '80s, early '90s action flick. You don't see a person like giving their themselves away. You don't a ninja doesn't go rah rah rah, or I'll just be real quick. A guy when it's a big of a threat as can be. Okay, they don't go rah 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 rah. In fact, things get real quiet. Like when you're walking in the woods. Watch this. See that? I'm a pantomime. Rah rah rah. Dramatic effect. When you're walking in the woods, and then you realize the crickets, the birds, yap, 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 all day. But all of a sudden, the moment you realize there ain't no noise, it's not you. It's almost too late. Almost every time. A bear, a lion, wild dogs, a boar, you know? It's all quiet and it's a boar. Sorry. See, that's me. I need to get that guy out of the way. But it'll get real quiet. And then all of a sudden, the attack. So, I'm not saying I'm the attack at all, but I'm just saying when I've come to really know that kind of quiet. And it's almost like it does something weird to people. They can't help but that they don't hear the loudness and the quiet. They don't hear everything slowly cutting out and how loud or predictable or they're giving away their point of location. They're just and then so it's like when I hear that kind of quiet, instead of falling into that kind of, it's almost a hypnotic state of just, it just goes to show like one's, some things are just meant to be prey, you know, and because there's a difference. There's the animal that hears that silence, and in nature, everything is telling it something's stalking you. And something's on you. And by the time you notice the quiet, you just hear snarls and you hear that's the sound flesh makes. And you might hear a splat like a fat raindrop. That's it. That's I've heard that sound before. That was my own blood. And it splattered across me, and you see it wasn't like cold. I barely felt it. Your own blood, it's a weird feeling when it comes out so fast it didn't know. It didn't have time to cool and all that. It's kind of like um, touching your earlobe or something. You feel like the pressure of the blood. You feel the like that of it hitting you, but you don't really, almost like a raindrop. But it's almost like you're like, what was that? Like you didn't know it was there because the temperature is your temperature, at least for a second. That's why blood can run down your leg if you've been cut or something. A lot of times people never know because it just. So it'll be that quiet. That quiet. You know. And here's the thing is sometimes people, they'll use party favorites. They'll develop addictions and all kinds of stuff. But here's the thing is it's unfortunate. Some people they want loudness. Uh, they purposely want to turn things up, so to speak, to tune things out. So they need that. And as long as they got that, we say ruckus, racket, ricket, something like that, it they know it's all right. Like the loud rocking, you know. So there'll come a time where they can't, they won't have that. Or maybe what I'm really trying to hone in on here is that sometimes it ain't a case of molestation or child abuse where they was beaten or some trauma. Okay, everything's not trauma based. In drugs and alcohol. A lot of times they are, but sometimes they're not. And here's an instance. And even if they do have trauma base, it's not. You know, this ain't it that I'm speaking on. But it kind of is. So just follow along. Anyways, God will be trying to get someone's attention, or we could say, the other hellfire and brimstone, going to hell. So, uh, yeah. Anyways, they could be trying to tune something out, and sometimes it's God. They're trying to mute, or over blare something, and they're just not ready. They're like, oh, I gotta give up this and do that, and you see the the baby boomers generation made God and church look like such a drag. You know, the Socialist Party was big on that. You know, because long hours in the factories, uh, you had unions. They paid it. They finally said okay. They worked with the unions, knowing that it would only take 40 years. You know, to us, 40 years is a long time, but you got to think, to a drop of water, a millennium is nothing. You take one little drop of water, it'll carve the Grand Canyon. You know what I mean? It's not, it's like, hey, do your thing, you know? I got this. And that's what's happened through the Socialist Party and communism and, all the kids and it was some type of government, whether it be school or the police. They was just like, well, our tax dollars, and they didn't care. They wanted people in the assembly lines in the factories. I was thinking about how fortunate I was to get as much church as I did, much Bible lessons as I did when I was a kid, and the wholesomeness, the authenticity of it. Now, sometimes people would say, "Oh, they just got on a bus and ate some donuts and got to be brats for a little bit." But that's not the case. You know, we were told to say our prayers every night, and when we talk to God, I mean, we really did. God hears a child. So we would. I remember being a kid, and I would put my whole heart into my prayers. you know, Praying with complete faith, and I remember trusting God. I never was really easy asking Him for stuff, in a way. Maybe at 8 or 9, I went through a phase, and then somewhere along the way, you know, uh, I always prayed, but I started praying in repetition as a habit of like OCD, like while stemming through like type, some people they'll do this. I used to do something like that in the rocking and everything like that, but um, when I was 10 years old, like sometimes I'll get a real bad stutter, or I'll get like a lockjaw. Like that's an example right there. That little brief second, I said a prayer, and it's a soother. It's a type of, it's a soothing. You call it OSD, or obsessive compulsive OSD. Yeah, yeah, OCD. Man, I've never done that in my life. Anyways, so I always prayed, but sometimes I think like somewhere along the way, I maybe was praying with my mind, and there was prayer with my heart, but it was like a fear, like a worrisome, like, because if I was trusting God, I wouldn't have to sue. Like I was saying, if I trusted God, then I could, uh, that would quail, that would quiet, you know, the fear and everything, and the desire, the need, or the overwhelming, you know, So anyhow, and I did, and it helps a lot. I learned. God showed me and taught me new ways, new trust, new things. It's just like uh, new ways to look at things and to approach them, and just how to give things to God and stuff like that. So um, new techniques. You know, it's pretty good, and they really help, and they help other people, and they help other people help other people, and that's God. That's good. I'm glad God gave me some. So, and I can, you know, if I serve God, I can help other people, and I like it. I like helping other people. I do. Uh, I like encouraging and inspiring, you know, and the main thing is I'm inspired and I'm encouraged, and my storms are better weathered because it's God that does it. And it's disappointing and disheartening at times when you see people reject it and everything like that. And that's what they do. They decide to, you know, like my anxiety when I'm in a room full of people and I see someone who's new and maybe like shy, or maybe not even shy, they're just not quite part of things yet, you know, and I'm like, hey, that's ego. Get over yourself and go show that person that, you know, there's they're liked and they're welcomed and everything, and let God, you know, do what He does, and get yourself out of the way. Get over yourself, you know, and that helps me with social situations and everything because I'm robbing my chance to glorify God by Him helping me with my anxiety. Just to someone early on, that might be a real hard thing to grasp. At all stages, it could be, but anyway. So, um, yeah. Anyways, and so quieting that noise. Some people, and it's disheartening, where want to, they'll drink or crank up the radio. These things are a lot of the times the flesh, you know. But there's a time where it's like the psyche like defaults to the flesh and like hedonistic mindset, you know. And so the id, the underdeveloped ego, or the pre-ego, there's really simultaneously all three uh, exist at the same time. It's like a teeter totter, and in the middle of the teeter totter, you have kind of like a balancing act, and that's you, that's the ego. And on this side, you have the id, and that's like a very hedonistic. Um, it's like a big, it's like a big fat baby. You know, it's like me. What? It's like even if you break your leg, and you know, it's like my tooth is coming through, and you know, and that's the it. The it's just I just if you make me feel uncomfortable, I don't like you until you make me feel happy. You know, like that's why they're not ready to have a superior. You know, like, well, if you critique me, you know, all that, and they're just not ready. You know, they cry to get what they want. They, you know, it's all they base their anger and everything. They base their not even their anger. They base like if like a mom. You got a 6 year old. He plays with matches, okay, and she goes, "You shouldn't do that. Now get inside and behave yourself." Now he's inside for the day. And she's doing something, who knows what. And he goes, Mom, 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 Mom. And she's like, Wah! And just bites his head off. That's a perfect example of that. His consequences of his punishment, even though all he did was tap her on the shoulder 7 or 8 times, you know, she's ready to just, and that kind of, and then she yells at him, threatens him, overly punishes him after psychological damage. And he's like, ugh. And now, the worst thing here, I mean, you get what I'm saying, is he's now been taught. That's how he communicates now. So he's already in his early childhood development, and now he thinks the way to respond to things, or she, is, well, you angered me, so that justifies the consequence. So that person that goes, rah, and now he's going to be in a perpetual state of hedonistic behavior. This is really catching on, by the way. I've been 6 years. I've been at this. God really gave me something. He's given it to other people because I really see this coming from many other aspects. This is good. Um. Anyways, so yeah, the image of the woman. She's like, well, as long as maybe she's on her phone, or I don't know, she's watching her soaps or something. Who knows? She was distracted and she was aggravated. And her reaction. So that's a hedonistic example. I think I'm using that word right. I could care less. But anyways, so in the middle of that, you have her, okay, and she's trying to balance, or him, the other side of the teeter totter. That's like the guy who wears his waistline up to here, pair of suspenders, doesn't color coordinate, could care less about a tie, wears one but doesn't match or nothing, and that's okay. And probably has the half-hearted comb over, 5 o'clock shadow, and there's many examples of this. Or the old sergeant, the old, or here's a good one. Well, I don't want to use that but anyways, it's just like your accountant type, or your librarian, or something like that. Someone who's just like, they like square objects, and they're just like short answer, very little emotion, and just kind of cold and indifferent. And someone's, will you? And then so it's just like you're almost like, I don't want to say gonzo writer, but just someone like not the writing, the rigid person, like a thorny guy, or a porcupine, just a prick, and it's just like every time you try to talk to him, you just get pricked by the prick. Anyways, so you tap that person on the shoulder, hey, 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 and it's like, what do you want? Robotic. It's like, well, I was wondering, now why would I do that? That's illogical and irrational. So now you have what's called the superego that's overly rational and highly logical and fairly practical. Men get caught up in that with our coffee breath, our thoughts and stuff like that. And that's like me. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be emotional and be dramatic and illustrations and blah, blah, blah. And I use a little demonstration and all that. But so that'll tell you. And that's, you can look up the temporal lobe and the sides of the brain and how they're used. And, left-handed people, right-handed people, feminine, the feline brain, nonverbal interpersonal communications, symmetry, all that. God gave us brains. It's okay to use them. I mean, we're all, at the end of the day, as long as you understand how no matter what you've learned, how stupid you are and how pointless it is, because you have all the answers in front of you with the King James Bible. So, but it's neat because I like being awed and I'm fascinated. It's okay to be fascinated. How can you not be fascinated by the Bible or fascinated by God when you see Him doing all? You know what I mean? When this meets this, you know that. And then so here's the thing and that's right back to the teeter totter. So you got the person on the teeter totter, the big fat baby, the square shouldered, rigid prick that only wants to talk numbers and square objects. Boo, 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 boo. And then in the middle, you got the person, and they want to center those, and most people would say, I'm centered in self. Well, Carly Simon, you're so vain. You probably think this song is about you. Because it's not centered in self, it's self-centered behavior. Like, well, I'm trying to fix me all day. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to, maybe I could be less emotional. Maybe I can be more logical and practical. Maybe I could be less logical and have a little bit of emotion. And then I can be just completely neurotic. Me, I. This is usually where someone refers to, there's 78 times I is mentioned in the Bible there. Okay, yeah, and that's good. Yeah, go straight to that message. That's a good one. And I'm not being sarcastic. Go to it. And this will support what I'm saying here. As you'll balance out naturally, Christ displayed that for us when He did a selfless act in faith, love, charity, faith, hope, and charity. So with a selflessness. So if you're caught up in yourself, I don't care how bad it is. If you're willing to just put yourself aside, not take yourself so serious, and do something for someone else. That's where a lot of tithing comes in. And listening to God's voice. Because some people, they're just mindless drones. They're zombies. And that's why they get prodded when they get to church. That's why they have to be gigged. Because they're just zombies. They're dead. And then they become sadistic. The sadists. I think that's sadist. Masochist. Yes, masochist. It's a one half's a sadist, the other half's a masochist. The Pharisees are sadists, and the Sadducees are. You get what I'm saying. So the Pharisees would be the sadists, and the Sadducees would be the masochists. So, anyways, they like being gigged to know they're alive. What kind of sick relationship is this? And puke, right? That's what they say. If you talk about like real love and joy, like you see an act of God and you just well up. Real Galatians fruits of the Spirit. And it's funny because you get to Galatians, and after you read all of Romans, that's kind of what you achieve. with the fruits of being able to put the flesh down and everything. And see, people just have a hard time grasping this. They want to use all these, and somehow they want to be great. Somehow at the end of what they say, they want to be great. And you can achieve that like Paul. If you're just like, hey, you know what's great? Not having to be gigged to love God, to be guilted, to be, yeah, rah! Like, what? And another thing is to not have to take drugs or alcohol because you have anxiety, because you don't want to hear God. You don't want to accept it. There's acceptance there. You just want to say, oh, you know what? No, and you're fighting it and all this other stuff. And a lot of times, like, people are like, well, okay, step one, I have a problem. I'm powerless over alcohol. Step one, admit you have a problem. Step one, accept what God's doing. Accept the fact that, you're finite, okay? You have a choice between heaven or hell. You don't have to pay nothing or do nothing, okay? You don't have to, really, people hate me for saying this, but you don't even have to stop nothing, okay? The only thing that's going to get you to hell, okay, is rejection, lack of acceptance. You reject Christ. And I'm not saying you got to accept Christ 50 times a minute. Oh, it's good to. But it's like you can say, you know what? And that's when you can start with step one, acceptance. You can say, okay. And then once you're okay with it, you don't feel like you're pretending along with everybody else, like Santa Claus. Like, I get it. You don't have to, or it's chored out, or something like that. You can just say, hey, you know what? I don't have to write a book. I don't have to go on Joel Osteen. I don't have to testify in front of the church. I just have to accept what I just saw or what happened. And then a person will be confused and they'll say, well, am I chosen? Am I this? Am I that? Back on the teeter-totter. Now this one's a spiritual teeter. I'm a prophet. And all this other stuff. You're going to go and strike the rock again like Moses, trying to put on a show, and all this. And me personally, I just like seeing God work. So I'll do just about anything I can. I'll act up. I'll say, okay, God, here it is. I'll say something to someone, and because I know it's the flesh, and if I agree or adhere, then I'm like, I'm just going to serve the flesh. But and it's in the flesh for me because I'm like, because I got a zeal to serve God, and I'm like, watch this. I'm going to disagree because God is right. And I'm not just going to go, preachy, 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 look at me as I polish my halo. Nope. I'm going to light a fire. And that thing's going to smolder and all this other stuff. And then, boom, it's going to kind of blow up in my face. But it's okay because that's when I get to see God work. And then it doesn't blow up in my face at all. God's just like, hey, it's like, like getting on a roller coaster or something. You got your hands up, or even if either way, you're on the roller coaster, but still, like, this one's a lot funner than this one, So it's just kind of like that with God. Anyhow, So people try to quail that and tamp it down, and cover it up and bury it. So, and it's sad to see, it's disheartening to see people try to reject that. And they kind of have to just understand, and that acceptance is a big thing. That way, and then they can really begin to, whatever it is, like I said, it's not trauma based or this or that, but like to heal. But sometimes people can just like get peace without it being that still of the night where the the predators lurk. You know what I mean? It doesn't always have to be like just before. It can just be, it can be good. And then people who don't understand that, they'll say, look at them, you know, you got to meet God halfway. You got to work and you got to do this. Or what's these people who's poor driving Cadillacs? It's like, or he ain't no good. Why should he get that person? You know, it's like, don't get in the way. It's not your judgment. You let God bless someone. You know, oh, that no good dog. He's working his way in there. That he don't deserve her. She don't deserve him. That's just right. Yeah. And it is so hard for certain people to just really see God's grace. They just keeps them up. Not on my watch. I'm the shepherd. I'm the protector. I'm this. It's like, well, okay, but that's all right, you know, and you start to see things, you know, and it's nice because when you're in that, like, in the fire chamber, you know what I'm talking about, and he wouldn't bow, and they got thrown in that. It was just like the fire, and then the angel of the Lord came in, and all that. It's like you got to go in that fiery furnace, though. It's like everybody wants, they want to be glorified. Nobody wants to be saved, you know, and which is, I get it, like I said before, for God to use a man and this and that. It's like, it's, to be humbled and to actually be scared and be like, ooh, and like a damsel in distress, but there's new types of calms and all that. So, new tests, new pressures, God puts you under. And you already know how it is. You know what it is. And you're like, you know what? I'm not robotic. I'm not, I'm not a cold reptilian, cold-blooded, predatorial, you know, just ice. Like, oh, I'm not numb to uh, conflict. I'm not where it's like I only have peace if there's conflict, and that's the thing, is people's going to have hell before hell a lot of times. They'll turn things They'll blow things out of proportion. Anything, anything. And the devil's right in the middle of that. And they might be rich, they might be wealthy, they might be doing A-OK in a lot of cases. Devil's done did his job, you know? And so it's not usually until the person really, their heart actually acknowledges what their eyes saw. And they'll run from it. But, it's like, okay, tell them twice, then dismiss them, you know. And there's some people who they wrestle. I've been known to wrestle, you know, for a blessing, you know. But it's just all pretty interesting, and people will try to quiet that down. And that quietness. And they'll turn things up to get loud, but that's what I usually tell people. Like, there's different types of quiet, you know? There's the quiet where a guy come up to you and he'll talk to you. He'll say it nice and calm. You might have been roughed up or something. All that jazz. That's when you're going to see the ice. You know? Uh, where it's like your only way to probably survive the instance is if you comply. You don't, you know? Just a nice quiet. And that's the thing. Because no matter what, that's just usually how it goes. I'm not trying to be dramatic or creepy or sound like a person giving a threat. But that's usually how it is. You hear that and you tell someone, hey. And then you have the other one who's just carrying along. Blah, 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 blah. And they don't hear that it's been quieted for some time. And that's how close they are to death. I heard something, you know, uh, I was going to go into nature. But, anyways, it's not important. The thing is, you try to tell someone, and they just, so, you don't have to be overly dramatic. It's good to get someone's attention, but the thing is why do you gotta be gigged, or why do you gotta be prodded, you know? Why do you gotta blah, blah, blah? Why do you need all that? You don't need all that. Every now and then, and I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, like, you don't really need. You just appreciate that. The joy and the love, you know. You don't have to block out the fact that you're going to hell. You can accept it. You can accept that you rejected God. Or you can accept God and reject hell. But anyway, it just kind of will start to dwindle down to just that. It's like, well, and then if you kind of accept the fact that what God's trying to tell you and do for you, then there's time. I'm not saying time to turn your life around and time to where you can live a happy life and get married or get healthy and all this other stuff. Like, there's time to not go to hell. To cry out. You don't need a big dramatic or nothing. You just gotta, if you got time to reflect, just say, hey, accept this. You're a sinner. The law was just brought here to be your teacher. So imagine like a cop, right? And you're like, I don't do no wrong. I'm not a sinner. I don't sin. I pay my taxes. I do this. Well, I don't, God will just take me when I get there and he'll say, well, you did good. You was a good person. You tried not to mess up and, uh, nope, all in vain. So it's like, well, you might do all this, but, you know, you got every human function, basically every thought, every action. And it's just there to show you, even pride. Like, look at, uh, Job, you know? He somehow got through 613 of them laws. Don't touch the unclean thing. Don't do this. I mean, some of them is a cakewalk, but some of them are like, man, how do you not? And God and the devil know it. But at the end of the day, it was his pride. He was trying to do it by his own means. And that's a rejection of God. So, and you can go into Job. He's a great illustration. He was I think, what they say, perfect or just and upright man or something like that. There's only like 2 or 3 instances in the Bible where, so that law is there to tell you, like, look, you're sinning. It's not there to tell you, like, you'll stop sinning. It's there to tell you that no matter what you do, you'll sin. Like, so you can say, you know what? I am a sinner. Am I going to stop? No. That's a sin. But it's an honest sin because you know you're not going to. Me? No. I'm not going to stop. It's it's absolutely ridiculous. It's impossible. So let's be realistic. And that now, some preachers, la, 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 la. No, seriously. And that's what runs people away. So now we got to accept this. We're a sinner. I'm a sinner. You're a sinner. What else? You guys say, oh, with a heart, call out to God. God, I am a sinner. Uh, and I believe that you lived as a man. You come down on this earth and took the form of a man and bore the cross, got a spear in your side, was crucified for my past, my present, my current sin, and all future sin. Mine and that guy who always steals in my parking spot. I mean everybody who accepts him. Okay? So I accept that. I believe that. I ask you, come into my heart. I accept you as my Lord and Savior. And ask that you forgive me, which you will be forgiven, of all my sins. So you're forgiven by accepting him as your Lord and Savior. It's okay. And I believe he died and resurrected, rose from the cross 3 days later. Yeah. And then with that, you say that. You say that prayer, the sinner's prayer. Google it. Look it up in your Bible. You find it all through your Bible. But, and then you understand the security in salvation. And God can work with you on whatever needs to. He'll put people in your life. He'll put you in people's life, you know. But that's the illustration of the teeter-totter. You see, God did a selfless act, you know, and that was love and charity right there. So, and charity's not just given to people, you know, go and give homeless people soup and sandwiches. No. Charity's a lot of different things. There's a big lesson in charity. Charity is giving someone grace even though they don't deserve it. Someone who's hurt you or harmed you or is just as guilty as all get out. You know, grace is not sticking the dog's nose in it. So, and I'm some people would say, you ain't got no grace. There's the thing is I have grace until I don't. You know? And I have this uncanny ability I'm a magnet for jerks and pricks, you know? And it's just like, I purposely am underestimated, you know, and everything. And because I enjoy rubbing people's nose in it. In all aspects of life. A bully, a this, a that, you know? And that's me. Because I'm a sinner. And I'm a jerk. And that's what I do when I get in the way. You know? And I could justify it and say, well, 7 times 70, forgive a man, you know, blah, blah, blah. And that man just went, you know, go all that in twain, you know. And then go twain again. Give him your cloak also, all that good stuff, you know. Shh, don't say nothing about nothing out of Matthew around any Baptist or, you know, it just seems like anybody now. Just like the real Bible that works, you know. You have your dispensations, you have your like, I call them like game changers, you know, in the Bible, where it's the same thing as from God's standpoint, but for us, it's like, oh, you know, different like eras of the Bible, you know, that we went through and everything like that, or not the Bible, of time, you know, of history, and the way things and problems were fixed and stuff like that. But you see, and everything from the law to and then you understand like the dispensation of grace and stuff like that. And then you can tell the prophecy of the Bible for the things that are yet to come. And in this sense, okay, it's like not like, oh, there'll be this in Revelations. No, in Revelation, it'll tell you about like some things have, or will this happen and this happen? It's like, no, this is someone stating a long time ago. They were a long time ago, and they're stating about something that was said possibly even longer ago, that something that was prophesied that's supposed to happen. So even though these two came to pass, and that came to pass, the prophecy and this person acknowledging it, but this one out here has yet to be. And that's the area where people just like, well, you'll answer for it. Hey, you won't be dressed in your treasures are dirt. It's like, listen, I'm a sinner. I love God. I love Christ. I love to witness. I love to testify. I love to testify that I love leading the witness. All this other stuff. But, you know, the main thing is I'm going to want to have fruits of the Spirit. And hopefully I can get there with a little bit of grace. So I like to turn down the chaos, you know, and not to the point to where it's scary, you know. So it's like watch out for the overdoing it in theatrics and all that, because when it gets quiet, it might be too late. So just like watch your back in the sense that if you're out there and you step on a stick and you hear how loud that stick is, it could be too late. That's what I tell people. You know, whether it be an overdose, I say, hey, and they're found slumped over in a garage. And I'll finish with this, but he could have changed his state. He was found. I said, if you don't, I said, God's. He said, listen. He decided to stick with his heroin. I said, well, I'm helping you because I'm listening to God, and I don't want this to happen. And then me and all this, and made it about me somehow. But I said, I don't want to get the call. And personally, I don't like you at all. Never have. I can't stand you. But that doesn't mean I can't serve God and help you. Then all of a sudden he thought he had a genie. Well, you can buy my cigarettes and you can do this. So, anyhow, I had some grace, and it come out to, I asked him, what's your standing? And we had that conversation. And he actually had the patience to hear me out. And I heard him out. And we just talked. Some people can't sit still long enough. Anyways, not about that. But I said, I'm pretty sure, but he was saved. And then I took him to rehab. And I dropped him off. I saw him too on his voyage. I got to be the Samaritan. I mean, Christ is ultimately the Samaritan, but I just took an example of that. And and the very next thing I heard from him, that time, exactly a year later, found dead in a garage, overdosed on heroin. And that happens a lot. The heroin overdose and everything, but he was actually saved. So I had the right kind of peace about it. you know? Now his standing in his state is good. In the name of the Father, the Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.